Welcome to the Tenet Podcast. I'm Todd Pearson here with the other half of Tenet, my friend, partner, and known to some as quite possibly the most interesting man in the world. One of only 898 people in the United States that have the same name. But we folks have the original, Mr. Wes Brown.
That's right. Back in college, and this is a true story, my friend, twice somebody came up to me and asked, "The Wes Brown?" And I said, yes. So it was interesting. Well, I was student body president at Black Hill State. Once again, a true story. Not to be confused with some of the other stories that aren't quite so true. But yeah, so I am the Wes Brown. Not to be confused with the actor or the soccer player. But, you know.
I thought you acted in all those Hallmark movies.
Oh, yeah. Well, you know, just when he can't show up, then they need another Wes Brown, then I show up. There's been like a couple Christmas ones that, like, we can't get the other Wes Brown, but we really wanted you anyway. So can you do it? And I'll be like, yeah. I said, who's my co-star? And they said, you know, some starlet. Anyway, it's good to be here.
It's good to see you.
So there's only 800 and some odd Wes Browns in the world.
898 people in the United States. I don't know in the world.
Okay, in the United States.
The fact that I got off Google today.
I was born on November 28th, and that is the 105th most common birth date. It's not number one, it's 105. So evidently not a lot of action happening 9 months before around November. So I don't know. I think November 4th was like, which is weird. Like November 4th was in the top 10, but then the 28th was like way down at, way in the middle.
Well, as you know, we took the week off last week so that we could kind of reboot, and we had the opportunity to travel to the beautiful town of Steamboat Springs, and we spent time in Denver doing some episodes this past weekend. So we're excited for what we have in store for you this entire month, including this episode this week. Our guest is a friend and artist from Pueblo, Colorado. She has a beautiful show that opened last week at Michael Warren Contemporary in the heart of the Art District on Santa Fe, entitled Changing Light, that runs to the 28th of August. Welcome back to the program, Meghan Wilbar.
Thank you both for having me. It's nice to see you both again. So thank you.
I know you're part of this elite club now of artists that have been on twice. I think there's only like maybe
two others. I think maybe
two
three.
Others. Yeah, I have to go back and look.
Maybe three.
Yeah.
Maybe three.
Maybe
Dan Drossman, Bill, and your fellow Pueblonian.
Oh,
Puebloan,
yeah. Cynthia
Ramu.
Yeah, it's good company.
It is good company.
Yeah. Thank you for having me, because it's an honor.
Well, we're honored to have you back on. We're honored that you even agreed to be back on.
Yeah.
I mean, there should be something said for that, I think.
And especially after that intro. So Megan's like, where the hell are we going with this?
I had no idea I was talking to the Wes Brown.
That's right.
So, I mean, now I know. So.
Yeah, true story. That's so funny.
For those that are tuning in for the first time, if you haven't heard it, you can go back to episode number 25, which is the first time that we had Meghan on. And it was right at the beginning of the pandemic last year in April.
Yep.
Yeah. It's kind of crazy to think about that, where we all were then versus where we all are now. So maybe not so different, because I mean, I am talking to you over Zoom. So
right, early on Zoom, and now like still on Zoom.
yeah, but by choice. So I mean, it works out.
Yeah. I listened to part of it today, and it was a fun conversation, and we had a great time. So it's great to have you back on.
Yeah. Well, it's fun to be on. It's fun just talking to you guys. So
well, we are
and listening to you. So yes.
Yeah, before the program, you were telling us that you take us in your ears with you when you go out and you paint sometimes, and I thought that was really nice. That's really cool.
Sweet.
Well, you guys have such a banter that makes you feel like you're part of a group. So, and you're also talking about interesting content. So I'm getting something from not only having friends in the car, but also different take from an artist or from you guys as artists.
entertaining and educational at the same
Yes,
time.
that's what I was going for. Yeah.
For the people that are listening, if you want to check out Meghan's work, you go to her website. It's meghanwilbar.com. That's meghanwilbar.com. And you can find her on Instagram at Meghan_Wilbar. So check it out. You'll see some phenomenal work. What have you been doing this past year? I would say post-pandemic, but that's crazy to say that because we really haven't got past the pandemic. We're still in the midst of it.
I know. I love saying, the pandemic's over, but, I'm still wearing a mask and, doing all of that. So it does feel better now than it did, say, when I talked to you last April. I think what I've been doing is kind of similar. I had, kind of that moment of a crash, when it first hit of like, what am I going to do now? Which lasted, it probably lasted a month or two, which I guess it could have lasted for much longer. But I decided just to focus on one thing that was helpful to me. And that was just one strip of land between, it's on Highway 96. It's between kind of by the Pueblo Reservoir and Wetmore, Colorado. I know this means nothing unless you've been there, but just kind of drawing and walking and paying attention to one thing that was a constant. And then, Michael maybe approached me last fall and talked about doing a show. And so I kind of really wanted to show more of the process of doing something like that. So, I do a lot of drawings of the exact same thing and kind of really figuring out, because for me, it's all about kind of observation to find abstraction. So kind of looking out to look in and vice versa, kind of that push-pull between both, the actual formal properties and also inward. So, listening to you guys while I'm driving around lets me maybe turn my head off a little bit so that I can draw and have you guys and feel okay. Because sometimes it's so weird to draw by the side of the road because cars are going by. And over the course of the year, had 2 or 3 people approach me, and one was giving me a Mormon pamphlet. One was park ranger, and another was somebody who thought I was stranded. So just having some voices talk to me kind of help keep it so that you don't feel super weird when you're just drawing every day on the same route, because you forget how visible you are to people who live off of these sections too. Because when the same car keeps coming by, people get concerned or they notice. So a lot of it was just a lot of repetition and then taking it back to the studio and doing paintings kind of based on kind of the changing light and just kind of taking it back to kind of just embracing the landscape more than I have. Because I think, and part of what I have done in the past of, you want to do something abstract or you want to do something realistic. And sometimes it's hard to kind of straddle that line between that. And so kind of, for me, taking back more, embracing the landscape and kind of coming up with more true colors to the skies and letting it be more about kind of that experience, having that be more of a focus. And I know that was a huge, long ramble to what I have done, but it's kind of what I've been doing.
So doing some of the same practice that you were pre-pandemic, but really kind of stopping and thinking about it even more so.
Yeah.
Kind of embedding yourself into it even more than you were before.
Yeah. And I think I also slowed down too, which, and at least painting wise, of doing more layers and kind of changing my approach. Cause I think, not that it's vastly different, but really thinking about how to create different kinds of effects with the paint to achieve something has been nice. So just slowing down and letting things dry in between has been something that I've been doing. Not that I wasn't doing it before, but more consciously.
So tell us, when people walk into Michael Warren Contemporary, what kind of work they're going to see, because this is all brand new work, correct?
Yes. So There's a total of 28 pieces that I did for the show, and they're all based on 7 different locations that are all along Highway 96. So I have 7 kind of mixed media drawings for each set of paintings for that location. So like one of the big paintings, which is a 48 by 55 landscape, has that one painting. It has the drawing that goes with it. And then I did 6 studies that went with it. So there's kind of a mix between studies and larger works.
I love that you have these studies in addition to these other pieces, and knowing that, I didn't know that right off until we started talking a little bit, but it was fascinating to look at, these studies and, obviously the different times of day that you were there and the different light, and see the little nuances from each little piece of the puzzle, I guess.
Yeah.
Did you do that before? Did you put studies with your paintings, or is this something new?
No, this is the first time that I had, because I've always done drawings and I've always done studies, but I've never really thought to put them together.
What made you think of doing that?
I think it was kind of just an evolution of, I found it to be interesting, and I thought, well, why do I always have to keep them separate or not let people know that I did a million studies for this? Because in one way, it's kind of embarrassing that I repeated myself like 9 times. But in the other way, it's kind of interesting, at least to me, to see kind of a subtle shift in each painting.
Right. Yeah. No, I think that's a great idea. I do. I really do. So Rain Parody does something very similar, because she just creates these sculptures out of plexiglass, colored plexiglass. And then she draws a study of what she wants to do. And then she creates that image with herself in the photograph. And these are photographs that are made. And then when she goes to show, she has the big photograph piece of her art. Then she usually has the sculpture with her. And then she'll do, like, she's always got somebody filming her doing the thing. So she has like B-roll of the adventure itself. And it's really it's an interesting way to present not only the art, but all these different elements that make up the art.
Yeah, I sometimes think the studies for things are sometimes more interesting than, I mean, not that the final product isn't interesting, but it's so interesting to see how people got to that image. So it'd be interesting to see.
It's interesting to see that thread that runs from, like, what this photographer that Wes is talking about, where she makes these maquettes and then watching what her original vision was and how it transforms into the final product or the final piece. It's really fascinating to see how people's minds work. And I love that about the show that you have at Michael Warren as well, is that you see these studies and then you see, a bigger piece, or, you can just kind of see the extension of your practice, and I think that's really cool to see. It was for me, at least. And I love the fact that you have like this whole series, and you could acquire one of those little pieces of the study, or you can get 6 or 7 of these, What's the largest series that you have? Largest study, I guess I should say.
I guess in the show it's 6, but each of the ones that only have 4 had started off with 9. Because at first I thought it'd be really interesting if they were all gridded, but then I think I might have gotten bored at some point of doing them, and they just started, when you lose focus, you kind of half-ass it. And so I was doing that with them, and 4 seemed to be the number that actually, between 4 and 6 is my attention span, I guess. But I've started with a lot more.
So 4 to 6 and beyond that, you start to lose focus a little bit. You start to get a little bit bored.
This time of when it's the exact, I think if I were to do it again, because I really do like making series of things, I need to go back and do drawings from different angles, or there's something about where your brain tells you know how to do it already. And so you just do it. And so it loses that kind of mystery that keeps you wanting to do it. So I think I can do it, but it can't be all from the same drawing. I have to go back more and figure out new ways of not just having your memory tell you what to do, but to physically see what you want to do.
Is part of that just going back to the same place every time? At some point you're like, okay. And especially with the pandemic, you were staying, I know at least when we talked to you last year, you're staying pretty close to home.
Mm-hmm.
Was that part of the play? Like, hey, I've been here a bunch and I'm just like, at some point in your mind, are you going, all right, I'm kind of over it now.
This was a cool idea, but at some point when you're just making a painting to make a painting, you need to stop, because it should be exciting every time. And if it's not exciting for me, it's not going to be excited for anybody else. Because I love going back to the same spot, but enough was enough. Like I could only do so much.
What else in your practice changed last year? I mean, obviously you were focusing on these places that were close to home, and you delved into some new areas as far as the change, more like trying to capture the different light, different times of day, right?
Mm-hmm.
Was there anything else that changed in that process and that practice?
I mean, I think the colors shifted too, and I don't know if they had more weight to them, but I've always left more white open, and kind of trying to have more blocks of color that form. And so that wasn't necessarily intentional. It was just kind of in the scheme of things. And maybe when I look at the work now, after having done it, you can see kind of the shift in the approach, where I didn't necessarily notice it when I was doing it.
In the midst of it, you weren't consciously aware of it, but standing back and being separated from it from a little bit, you could see that.
Right. Yeah. And I think, partly there's more, maybe slightly more representational, just more actual details to the landscape. And I don't know if that goes along with slowing down too. I think, I've always tried to be both abstract and representational in some way. And I think for this body of work, I let that go a little bit of needing to be abstract, because it just naturally comes. Because when you're looking at a landscape, everything is so abstract when you're looking at shapes and form, and you kind of don't have to put your own stamp on it. You can do it without forcing it. So I think for me this time, it was a little bit more of taking myself out of it a little bit, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, I think it does. And you're right. When you look at landscapes, if you really just kind of look at it as shapes and thing, it is very abstract. Mountains have very abstract feel to them. But I think, for the untrained eye, I think a lot of times we don't think that way. We think it's representational or real. And so we don't think about the abstractness of it all. But yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah.
Slowing down, you think, was something that you'd never really done before, or it just kind of naturally came into play and you realized that is that part of what you do now, just taking it a little bit slower, or does that make sense?
Yeah. And I think too, it also happened with like the drawing on site, because I used to be able to, complete a drawing in one sitting. And I don't know if it was my interest more in seeing it at different times. And sometimes I'd go back to the same spot multiple times, and I try to keep it the same type of day, just so that you are still getting the forms, but every time you look at it, it is something new. And that's why drawing from outside is so incredible, because no matter, you can pick shapes always, it's always changing. So I really slowed down with the drawing part too. And I don't know, because I can listen to an entire Tenet podcast in one sitting and then still need to go back. And you aren't the shortest of podcasts. So if that's a gauge on how long I'm taking per session, and they're not super big, and kind of being more intentional about what shapes you want to make, instead of, because sometimes when you're drawing, you're responding, so you're doing that. So doing it in multiple sessions too, of going slower, you're really intentional about what types of shapes you want to put. Because if you're not putting very much, you want them to count. So, I'd bring it back home and look at it, go back out, figure out what it needed, and then and then bring it back. And same for the paintings too. It was just slower.
So color must shift for you too, especially depending on what time of day you go, obviously shadows are shifting, but color shifts too. And to capture that.
Yeah. And with drawing, I'm doing them all in like browns and whites. So for me, that was a way just to be able to just have shapes and be able to have, because they're all shades of white and cream and brown. So you can have a temperature change in the whites. So you can kind of, put different pieces of matte board down so that kind of spatially how things are arranged, so that when you work on it in painting, you can use like your memory of what color is. And I was doing some color studies in my car too, of just painting little swatches of colors that I wanted to remember, and then sometimes using them and sometimes not. But yeah, I mean, it's amazing how overwhelming all of the different changes can be. Because I mean, you've got color, you've got clouds that are making all of the shadows change, so it's a lot.
And I think that's the beauty of plein air, is the fact that everything's changing and your mood probably changes, or your impression of everything shifts. And, but it also could probably be kind of crazy. It's like, oh, that light just totally changed and I didn't quite capture it, but or the shadow moved and now it's different.
Yeah. Now you're making the decision whether you want to stick with what you had or get what's there now. So, it's just each drawing is a lot of moments all at the same time.
When I was there for the opening last week, we talked about a particular piece, very colorful piece that you said that you had painted three different times. There's 3 layers of it, and you said essentially, I had asked you, you're shaking your head. I had asked you when you felt like, how you knew it was done. Talk a little bit about that, because I thought it was interesting.
Yeah, and that particular one, and it was probably it was 3 times that I did it the exact same way. And I had put clouds in it before. I had taken clouds out. I'd always kind of wanted it to have that kind of feel of night. And so the last 3 times I painted the sky, I painted it light. I didn't like it painted dark on the top. I painted it light again. I painted dark over the top. I painted it slightly bluer with dark over the top. And then I thought, you know what? I think we're done here. So that's how it finished, because you can only paint something the same exact way so many times before it just tells you that that's it. So that's what happened with that one.
So when you repainted it, did you repaint it on the same canvas or just another canvas in a different form?
Same
canvas,
one,
right?
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah. And I like to tell myself that, each layer is adding something, and that, it's adding something, but I'm not completely convinced that that's true. It might've just been covering over something but I do think in the end, it did have kind of both the light and the dark at the same time. So it achieved what I had wanted to without it completely receding in. Because I think like dark blacks and blues are hard to work with, because sometimes they can just completely matte or just be absorbed into the canvas, so that it creates like a black hole. And so my goal of painting it light and dark repeatedly was to try to get it so that it held the space, so that it wasn't a background, is what I was hoping. So that the sky was it, and it held its own space, but it took a while.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful piece. I don't remember seeing a name on all those pieces. Is there a particular name for that piece?
It was called Smoke in the Air, because I started it this time last summer, when all of the smoke, because that particular view has mountains in it, but last summer you couldn't see the mountains either. And so, I mean, it's like full circle of smoke in the air last summer when I started to try to get that. And now here we are where we can't see the mountains again. So
I got a question. So you got all these studies, you go back to your house to paint, or your studio to paint. And in the process of painting, can your mood affect how you're painting? And does it shift depending on the mood?
Yeah, I think so. And I think that's kind of the beautiful part of painting, where, drawing, I really am just responding to the landscape. But in the studio, I'm free to do whatever. So it's not like a complete science experiment. It's, mood has a big chunk in that. I mean, I like to listen to music and dance around. So, it can be happy or sad. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
How much dancing goes on in the studio?
Oh, a fair amount. I mean, it's not a huge studio, so I have to keep it contained, but you've got to dance around every so often. It's the beauty of having your own studio.
Do you have a disco ball?
No, but I should.
So where we were at this past weekend in Steamboat, she has a disco ball in the studio. And she actually has a disco, she's having a disco dance event. Yeah, disco night at the studio. And she invites all of these people in, and they dance on the table. I know, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. She turned on the disco ball for us right before we left, and it was a good send off.
Yeah.
Of course, a product of the 70s. I had an immediate flashback. So,
in addition to this work in your solo show, you also are showing some pieces, some things that you did that were collaboration. Talk about that. Yeah.
And that was something that started last summer too, when, all the smoke came in, and it kind of obstructed my view of going, because I was doing all of these drawings on that same highway. And all of a sudden, because I was repeating so much, I couldn't see the mountains anymore. And those were kind of always my anchor. So I had to figure something else out. And I think there was a fair amount of still, even last summer, of kind of isolation that was happening. And so I invited 12 of my friends to do sketchbooks with me. So I made them just out of like mat board. I have tons of mat board. My cousin's a framer, so he gives me offcuts. So I made all of these sketchbooks out of mat board, and then I sent them to, I guess, all the time zones. And then I did like a drawing. They would do one or two back, and then we would just send them back and forth for up until, I guess, mid-July was the last time I mean, I still have a couple out there that didn't make the show because they were too slow, but it's been really fun.
I thought it was fun to look, and I didn't even know if you go there, you can touch them, correct?
Yes.
You can pick them up and look through them.
Should have had him made the sign for that, because that's kind of the beauty of them. They're not precious. You can touch them, flip through them. And my friend artist that made the one that you have on your screen, she's a like a game developer, web designer, photographer. And so she made a QR code that's in there, but you only know that if you open it. Yeah.
Well, that's good, because I dropped one of them.
Well, good.
I was trying to set it back on the shelf, and I walked away and it fell off. And when I set it there, I'm like, all right, I don't want this to fall off. And as soon as I walked away, of course, it fell off, and then I felt like an asshole. But
well, it's been through the mail so many times.
I'm just watching. I'm just thinking, I wonder who just watched me, like, watch that book fall off this little shelf that I put it on. I'm like, God, of course I have to be that guy, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But I felt, because you said that I could touch them and I could thumb through them, that it probably wasn't that big of a deal. It didn't hurt it. So, but I really enjoyed flipping through all these books, because you have 8 of the 12, right? You said?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. 8 of the 12 that you've done. And it's just interesting, because it's just this dialogue back and forth between you and that other person, that other artist. I thought it was just a genius idea. I mean, was this something, how did you come upon this idea? I mean, obviously it had to do with isolation and that sort of thing, but what really like made you go, I'm going to get this mat board and put these books together?
I'm not exactly sure. I think it was more of like, I want to be able to connect with people, but I'm not really hanging out with people. So this was a way, Also, I have a sewing machine that I was making masks with. And so I was really into sewing stuff. So I was making little books. So sending them was really interesting. And it really put me back in touch with people because I think they also responded to it like I did because, you send something off in the world and you hope somebody pays attention to you. I mean, social media, you do it all the time and you hope somebody gets it. But for this, it was such a more one-on-one kind of connection that I rekindled like friendships with people that I hadn't thought about. And I mean, not that I hadn't thought about them in a while, but, we weren't on a let's call each other every day type of thing. But with a lot of them, they'd get the book and then they'd call me or I'd get a letter with it or, stuff like that. And that was kind of important to me, particularly at the time where you want to connect with people and you also want to connect with artists and kind of be seen and see them. So it was more fun than I had thought.
So did they know that this was coming in the mail to them, or was it just a book with a kind of a description of what you wanted to do?
I emailed all of them to say, would you be interested in doing this? And most of them were. I mean, just some of them, I think life does get in the way of, you forget that there's a little sketchbook hanging out on your desk somewhere. So some of them I did prod a little bit, like I haven't seen the book in months, Most of them, got back to it. And some of it was a nice surprise of there's no correspondence back and forth. It's just all of a sudden a door is under my mat. And I get to kind of see what they were thinking.
Yeah. No, that's a brilliant idea. I love that. It's kind of like having a pen pal, back in the days,
Yeah, an art pen pal.
Yeah.
It's funny because Mike at the gallery said that too. And I thought, I have been elaborately trying to explain sending a book back and forth and writing in it. And I thought, everybody knows what a pen pal is. I wish I would have just thought about that term much earlier. But yeah, it's a pen pal. And one of them, Meghan Williamson, I'd done a book with her. She did and Heather too, we've done like art to art type of things where we've sent stuff back and forth. And so it was nice I was her intern when I was in college. So kind of doing something with her was really interesting too.
And it's not just art. There's actually, in some of them, there's a fair amount of like journaling and some poetry. And I could have spent like a whole day just looking through the books, And in addition to that, so you show like one, maybe 2 or 3 pieces from each person that you corresponded with in addition to these books?
I did, yeah. And that was interesting too, to kind of see what they were working on now. Because I've known them at all different points of my life. And so having all of their work together was really cool.
Yeah, I thought it was real interesting to look at their work and looking, at the collaboration itself. So did you know what they were going to send for the show? Or did you have any dialogue about it? I
did. And mostly I left it up to them on what they wanted to choose. Mostly I told them space-wise of what was available, and they kind of chose what they wanted to do. But I was happy with all of the work that they decided to send in.
Yeah, I mean, it was a mind opening for me to just see how creative people could be, in the midst of a pandemic and sharing, this dialogue via art back and forth. So I love it.
Oh, good. I'll have to send you a book, Todd.
Do it. I'll participate.
And Wes, yeah.
There you go.
All right. I got 2 more.
So when you do this, are you sending do you send the book to me and then they send it to somebody else, or is it just a dialogue back and forth?
I was selfish and I was getting 12 books. They were just getting 1.
Okay.
So I was just sending it back and forth. And
so it was a dialogue between another artist and you.
Yeah.
Okay. That's cool.
And partly it was fun too, because you get to see like your former self too. So, you get to see yourself from 2 months ago and a year ago. and maybe I just wanted more books to come to me. I don't know. Because somebody asked that too, because they started to know me at the post office, and they wanted to know if it was like a book, like a chain letter.
Right.
And I said, no, I'm always sending them to the exact same person. But yeah, I could have. And maybe next time it'll be more like a chain mail, where it can go, or a book club where you can send them around. But this one, I think I needed to hear from people more. So
yeah, no, I think that's a beautiful way to do it. I mean, that's a great way.
Oh, well,
I like that a lot.
One of the people that you collaborated with was this little angel.
My niece, yeah.
Your niece, Gloria.
Yeah.
And she's an artist, obviously. She's in this particular picture that I'm sharing. Obviously, our listeners can't see it, but you can see it. It's the two of you stand in the gallery with the book that she did with you, or has been doing with you. And then you had two pieces of her art.
Yeah.
How long has she been doing art with you?
Oh, I mean, since she was small. And she's one that she's just ready to do it. She's so much fun. We had a whole weekend of making art. We made mini food this weekend out of clay. She's so much fun. But yeah, those are her two paintings that she did. And she's much quicker than me. She made both of the paintings in like an afternoon. So she gets paint everywhere. She knows exactly what she wants, doesn't question it, does it. Yeah.
Isn't that beautiful that she hasn't been inundated by, the world yet, and her thinking and her process is just free, whereas, as you get older and as you become an adult, you have these parameters that either our society puts on you or we ourselves put on ourselves, right?
Yeah, she was amazing. At the beginning of June, they had a whole celebration in Pueblo for the Pueblo Levee. And so I took her, she was visiting me then. And so she came back and she wanted to do a painting of the levee. And at the end, she decided that she needed to make the actual pedestrian bridge for it. So she needed, wire and cardboard and all of these things. And she had to put the painting on the floor to put the bridge on top. But it wasn't a problem to her at all that now the painting didn't go on the wall anymore. It now went on the ground so that it could have this three-dimensional bridge. And I thought, that's amazing. I wish I was like, it needs a bridge. I'm going to take it off the wall and just make a bridge.
Yeah.
So
instead of just painting one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Like it needed that. And she was willing to spend the time to give it what it wanted. So yeah, she's amazing.
When you're at that point where you're really like analyzing stuff and thinking about things, and I'm asking this because we got to do a studio visit with an artist this past weekend, and he's doing these exercises where he literally has these canvases on the ground and he's like laying, and I'd have to show you a video. I mean, it's intriguing, but it's an exercise to help free him up in his practice. But he's literally crawling on these canvases as he draws, and he's using a multitude of different mediums to cover the canvas. Sometimes he's, covering himself with paint and rolling around on him. Sometimes he's kind of drawing his body in different positions as he's moving around, like tracing himself. And it's just really intriguing. Is there anything that you've ever done to kind of help free yourself up?
I wish I was that creative of doing that. There's nothing that, I do, I'll do a wash of a color over something or completely erase something, if you're working in charcoal or, kind of wipe something down and then start again, but I'm not quite as free as that.
We were there with another artist friend of his, and she had participated like the week previous, and she thought it was really interesting because she thought that, oh my God, I'm so I'm so rigid in my practice. Like I have like this routine that I get into, and for me to lay down on that canvas and be rolling around and drawing, she thought was, it pushed her out of her comfort zone completely. And initially she was, it made her kind of anxious, I think, a little bit. But as she did it, she was like, wow, that kind of was really freeing. And then when she got home and unrolled the canvas, she was like, I'm glad I did it. I'm glad I participated in that. And I think maybe I don't know if she'll do it again or not, but it at least made her start thinking. And, it was one of those moments where that it kind of hits you and you're like, okay, maybe I need to change it up a little bit.
Right. Yeah. It's kind of like I was saying with Gloria, just doing something that you wouldn't normally expect to do, and rolling on a canvas is something I wouldn't expect to do, but is definitely something that I think could help on, when you're so stuck in one particular way of doing something and it starts to become routine or not fun. Yeah. Got to do something. Yeah.
So the other thing that I got to observe when I was at your opening and looking at all the beautiful pieces, and then, I got to experience firsthand, we talked about the books, but I also got to witness Gloria selling her very first piece of art, which I thought was just phenomenal. We were standing there and all of a sudden a red dot goes up next to one of the pieces. And I was like, oh my God, that is phenomenal. And then you said that's the first piece she's ever sold. So at 9 years of age. So congratulations to Gloria.
Yeah. And her art teacher, she just went back to school. She gets to do a presentation now that she's an exhibiting artist at her fourth grade class. So
wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, selling a piece and doing a presentation. It's been a pretty good week for her.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. I'd like to sit down. I'd like to sit in on that presentation. I think that'll
be
fantastic.
Yeah.
I know you also were keeping yourself busy promoting artists and art in Pueblo. Talk a little bit about that during the pandemic.
I did. And I mean, I work at the Pueblo Library, and I work in the Info Zone Museum section and special collections. So kind of both the archives and our museum space. So we were closed to the public, I guess, over the course of time, maybe 4 months where we weren't open, but we were also closed for programs. And that's, a big chunk of programs and exhibits is kind of what I do. So I decided to do a series of Pueblo art walks, is what I was calling them. And so doing something similar to what you're doing of interviewing artists about their work or any specific project they were working on, making a very short video for it, and then putting it on the library Facebook and YouTube. And so I probably have maybe 12 of them. I'm working on a couple more of all Pueblo artists, because they're really doing great work. And so it was fun to kind of get to hear their process and show their work. So I'm still kind of working on that, but because we're now, the library's doing renovations, so our program, we're not doing as many programs. So we're still kind of doing virtual, still pandemic times, kind of. So we're doing kind of a hybrid of that, so I can still do my series.
It's pretty informative and educational to get out and about and see what your peers are doing in the art community. Mm-hmm. Who were some of the people that you got to highlight?
I did Eric McHugh, who's a sculptor in town, Shannon Palmer, who does murals and painting and video, Jen DeGroot, who does kind of paintings, Teresa Vito, who does more realistic paintings, really, really great painter. I'm working on a couple of leve artists who are both younger women who have done 4 murals already, and it just started last year. So a lot of really kind of a broad range of, kind of the, kind of standard 2-dimensional work all the way until, doing large murals too. So Pueblo's got good things happening. So and they were very nice enough, to share their work with me. So.
Yeah, it's always inspiring, and you always feel honored when they're able to, take the time to sit down with you and talk with you about the work that they're doing. I didn't realize that two of those artists had done four murals a piece.
Yeah, they're cranking them out. It's amazing. And the first one, I think they both started like in October. So, I mean, they've been really doing a lot of work up there, which is incredible. It's nice to see.
Yeah. That's a big canvas to be painting on.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the fact that you're tethered and working above the river and working at a weird angle and not being able to really, immediately be able to walk back and get a sense of it,
Yeah. Yeah. And one of them was telling me that she does it all freehand. So she doesn't sketch it out on the wall ahead of time, which I think is even more challenging because I can't imagine trying to get the scale. I have trouble getting scale right, at a 20 by 30 inch range, much less on the mural. So that was interesting to hear.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah.
I can't imagine painting a mural, period, let alone
right.
being on the levee painting. So I think that's pretty spectacular. We might have to get some of those artists on here at some point and talk about their work, especially now I know that I knew that people were doing one or two or whatever, but not four. So I think that's pretty spectacular.
Yeah.
I want to go back and talk about your show just a little bit more and talk about one of my favorite pieces in the show, this piece here. What is this piece called?
Twisted Highway.
Twisted Highway. This is a beautiful, beautiful piece. Talk about this just a little bit, if you would.
Yeah, and this is another one that it took me a while. And this is one that has all of the studies that go with it. And I don't know, too, if that's, for me, it was kind of the evolution that was interesting about this one because I haven't done a lot of blues in the sky recently. And keeping the pink clouds pink, because my intention at the beginning was, when, it's dusk and clouds are like a grayish pink. Mm-hmm. I was going to put black on the top and I just had to leave them that way. I don't think that answered your question at all. But that's kind of my thought process when I look at it. I think of what was interesting to me, and it was kind of just the change of colors and also the distance in space. To me, it seems a lot like, the road leads you one way and the clouds leave you coming right back. I always think of it a little bit. One of my goals is, like a taco shell, where if you put it like flat on a table, and so you have one part of the shell and the other part of the shell, and then it goes deep into space. That's what I sometimes try to do with the landscape. So the cloud is the top of a taco shell, and then, you follow it all the way back to the mountains, and then you come back to the road. So it's a full journey, but it's also flat.
Yeah, it gives it depth, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just absolutely stunning. If you're in Denver, you owe yourself a trip down to Michael Warren Contemporary and checking out this show of Meghan's, because your mind will be blown. Your work is just so unique to me. I don't see anybody else doing what you do, and I think that's why I get excited. And then we saw our friend Topher Strauss that evening as well, and I think that I had talked to him before about him being a fan of your work, but I was happy to see him, and we had a great conversation wandering around looking at the different pieces that evening.
Yeah, it was good to see him. And I'm a fan of his work, so it's always nice, to have artists that are there and that appreciate your work. It's special.
New Magazine is our media sponsor for the Tenet podcast. That's NUE. You can follow both the national and the Denver edition of New Magazine on Instagram. The national edition can be found at new_magazine. new_magazine and the Denver edition at new_Denver_magazine. Look to New for compelling stories from the world of art and fashion. Thanks for listening.
I'm Joy Redstone, and you're listening to the Tenet Podcast.
You had a show that was scheduled at Red Brick in Aspen that got canceled right at the beginning of the pandemic. What's the deal with that? Are you rescheduled with them?
I am. I'm November through February.
Oh, fantastic.
So yeah, I'm looking forward to that because it was kind of a real bummer to almost go, and then 2 days before I was supposed to go, have it canceled. So it's back on. I'm excited. They seem to be excited. So it's going to be a mix also of drawings and paintings. So it should be
stuff
fun.
that I didn't get a chance to see at Michael Warren, some different stuff.
Yeah. I was going to try to do different stuff for it.
Okay.
I haven't quite narrowed down exactly what it was or what it's going to be, but it's not the work that's up right now. It's some work that I'm working on now, and some of it that I did before the show or that didn't make the cut. So I'm trying to keep them two separate shows. So it's not that I think I have a lot of crossover between those two locations, but just in case, it's nice, I think, for me to get excited about two separate things.
Yeah.
So they're not just one show going to the next venue.
Right. Well,
I think it's cool that you have work that you did pre-pandemic, and then you're going to, infuse it with stuff that you've been working on as of recent, right?
Yeah. I'm kind of interested to see what it'll look like together. Yeah.
Now, did you create anything specifically with the pandemic in mind on purpose? Like, this is my pandemic kind of work, or?
I don't think so. It was not something that I thought in my head, like this is, portrait of, something that's very much about the pandemic. But I think, you were talking earlier about kind of your mood somehow ends up in it anyway. Mm-hmm. So I think a good chunk of what I have done during the pandemic has been, directly associated with it in some way, because I'm still me living through it. So, yeah, it's still there.
And then how did you navigate the pandemic as far as professionally as a painter, or even with your work at the library? What did that look like?
I think the early part of it, I think it was, kind of just really uncertain. And I was, you try to have the gift of, working in my studio, and I wasn't physically at the library, but there was still that kind of, like, what do I do? How do you make sense of it? And then you kind of ease into it. And so it kind of became more of a routine for me. And the library opened up again. So, I was still doing, my days there in the studio. So it became more of kind of just a routine. I think partly, this show that I have now really did stay pretty close to home. I mean, I've left the state maybe once in the last year and a half. So, I mean, all of the work that I have done, or all of my experiences, have kind of been very much about Southern Colorado. And I mean, I'm fairly new back to Pueblo. I moved 2.5 years ago. So it's helped me really appreciate all of the landscape here. And the nice thing too about Pueblo is that you can get out of the city in 10 minutes, where Denver, I could never, it would take you 10 minutes just to get to the highway.
Right.
So it's nice, to be in the pandemic where I'm close to being outside and being away from people, and I can still kind of function.
Yeah. And, that Pueblo area, it has different feels depending on which way you go, as far as vision or landscape wise.
Right. I mean, you can go to the mountains, you can kind of go more bluff, desertish looking. You can go to the plains. I mean, all of it is within a half an hour span. So yeah, it was helpful.
Any plans of places you want to go once things kind of hopefully chill out a little bit, that you want to go do some work at?
Yeah, I'd like to, before I moved here, I did a lot of artisan residencies, and I think it's finally at the point where I would like to do some again. I'd like to go to the Grand Canyon. I'd like to go, kind of see more rock formation type of thing. Would be interesting. I mean, I'd like to go to New Mexico and do work. I mean, I'd like to go to Greece. I mean, there's lots of things I'd like to do that I maybe will do or not do. But there's lots of things. I don't really have any
set plans
at the moment. No, but
I know last time we talked to you, you were thinking about going to Basalt and doing some
I
work
know.
there, because that's where your family, I guess, ended up in Colorado first, or part of your family had immigrated there.
Yeah, and I'm not that I completely lost. Well, I did lose that train of thought, but because I had started with, I went to Wilbar, North Carolina, which is where my dad's family came in the like 1800s, 1800s. So I went there, it's just a sign that says Wilbar. There's nothing else. I mean, there's a couple of houses, but so I thought I would, follow the thread of my dad and follow the thread of my mom's family. And maybe at some point I will. But yes, I'd like to get back to that. Yeah.
So Basalt's still a possibility?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Because my family has like a family reunion that they go to in Glenwood Springs every year. So it's not somewhere that's out of bounds. It's a doable place.
Yeah, you mentioned Greece, and I was just thinking how your art would look visiting Greece and what you would bring to that, what Greece would bring to your artwork.
Yeah, wouldn't that be great?
Yeah, it'd be awesome.
Looking for sponsors. I mean,
there you go. So, if anybody wants to sponsor Megan and the Tenet Podcast to go along and document it.
Right. I definitely need someone to document that.
Right.
I know you were able to show at Blowback there in Pueblo last summer, right? Did you have any other opportunities last year to show?
I didn't really show much last year, but I do have a billboard with Blowback. If you're driving south on I-25, they have a billboard with my painting on it. So more incentive to drive south. And I'm having a show with them again in December. So,
fantastic.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, they're good people there. So
well, that's cool. Hey, you could do the billboard. You could do a piece with your billboard in the actual painting, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, I'll quit being goofy. I just thought of that. I thought, highway, side of the road, billboard, and you got your art.
Yeah. I'm on it.
Have you been part of any shows this year outside of Michael Warren? Have you been doing anything like group wise?
I did a group show at the Boulder Museum. It was kind of a pandemic show. Actually, I think it's still up. It's been up for almost a year, and I think partly it was closed for a while, and then they reopened. So I think it closes in October, and I have 3 drawings in that. I have 1 drawing in the Arvada Center show, and that's, I think, all that I have.
Okay. I just wanted to mention that because I had seen that on your website. So the drawings are part of Drawings Parallels up at the Museum of Boulder. And then the piece that she was talking about at the Arvada Center is called Viral Influence. And that runs actually for just another week or so. So if you have multiple ways to get out and check out some of Megan's art.
Yeah.
How was selling art last year? Were people buying art?
It wasn't my worst year, which I had anticipated it being the worst. I had a lot of people, like friends of mine, that bought work, which was kind of nice. And I don't know if it was a stimulus check that did it, but people came to my studio, they bought work. I was happy, they were happy. So it'd be nice if that could continue on. But yeah, it was a fairly decent year. it wasn't super decent like gallery wise. I sold most of it myself out of my studio or people that saw me on Instagram or things like that. So, because I sometimes think I'm a horrible business person, but I didn't do too bad. So that was nice.
No, it's great to hear that. And, to a T, almost everybody said that it wasn't a terrible year for them. It was either a super great year or, better than average for sure. And everybody, I think, kind of pulled together during the pandemic and bought art and sought it out. And did you sell anything off social media? I know we talked about this last time we talked to you. But...
I did. I think and some of it is like people I have known from the past or people that I had, that follow me because I taught a workshop or something like that reached out. And, I think it helps that some of them have seen my work in person before, because I think there is something about seeing it on a screen versus seeing it live. So they kind of had an idea, but I sold stuff to people from Instagram, and I think that was it. I don't think anybody, I have Facebook, but I know a lot of people have like a Facebook page that shows all of their work and then they update, I don't do that. I just have my own Facebook where anything is on there. So
it's hard to keep up with all those different, different platforms, I think, all the time. It's a job in itself. So
yeah.
I feel your pain, because keeping up on all that is, like I said, at least a part-time job, if not a full-time job. And then,
right.
the website, keeping that updated. And right. Usually for most artists, it's one or the other. Like they're good at Instagram, but they're terrible about updating their website, or, their website is pretty good, but, the other platforms, the social media platforms, suffer.
Right. And I think because for a while I thought, I'm going to get really ambitious and try to do that. But I really have to streamline it. And Instagram is the easiest way, because it makes it too much. It's like a part-time job of, and then it also like you get your like emotions attached to it too, or, I don't want to do that. I don't want to spend my time just updating stuff. I want to.
Yeah. You want to do the work.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
What other things do you have coming up outside of this show at Michael Warren? And then you mentioned the show at Red Brick that happens in November. Yeah. Any other shows planned that are coming up?
I'm doing kind of a collaboration show at Cottonwood Center for the Arts in Colorado Springs. They invited me. It's one writer and artists that respond to his writing. And I think that's in November. Again, not being a good business person, I should have had the dates written down or even the title of the show, but it's at the Cottonwood Center for the Arts. And I'm pretty sure it opens November 5th.
That sounds kind of interesting. So it's a multitude of artists reacting to the writing of a writer.
And he writes, and a lot of it, and I don't know if I was chosen because I do landscapes, but a lot of his writing kind of, like paints a picture with his words of landscapes that he knows. I haven't actually started on it, but I'm planning on it. And it's really interesting writing.
So will it just be one piece with his writing or multiple pieces based on?
I was going to do a series of 3 because they want at least 3 per artist.
Okay.
So I haven't quite determined if I want to do 3 based on one of his writings or pick one of his writings for each, but I'll let you know when I start them and finish them.
There you go. Yeah.
Well, that sounds exciting. I like that. I like it when I like hearing and seeing how artists like mix it up, and I love seeing, our friend Michael Dowling, he's like the master of collaboration, at least this past year. And it's interesting to hear, people's take on it, and interesting to hear how the artist feels about it and what it does for them,
Mm-hmm. It's similar to what you were talking about, if, like rolling in a canvas, like just to be able to have something completely different that spark something else that you wouldn't normally think about. So I wouldn't normally think about tying my work into somebody's writing, but I am. So that's a new way to approach how to start.
Yeah.
Yeah. The process to me is very fascinating, and to just see how people's thought processes and brains work, for sure. Mm-hmm. Are you teaching any kind of, are you doing any teaching? Are you doing any workshops this next year?
I haven't even looked into it, because most of the places that I have done before aren't, in person. And so, no, I haven't looked into it again. Because mine too, I know a lot of people did online stuff, and I've done them mostly where, I make, they're all drawing collage based stuff. So the answer is actually no, I'm not doing any. Yeah.
I was just curious because I know that you've done some workshops before.
They're fun. Yeah. Yeah. With the pandemic, it was one of those that just kind of, I don't know if I lost interest in doing it, or if it was just something that I didn't think about consciously of, it wasn't in my normal business plan. I just do them for fun mostly. So it was, if I don't do one this year, that's okay.
Any interest in the future of, in having some kind of a teaching type of thing? I know you talked about pivoting a little bit from what you're currently doing and really focusing on your art. Is that something that you would be interested doing in doing in the future? Yeah,
maybe in the future. I always thought when I had something to say was when I would want to teach. Because I went to the New York Studio School, and all of our kind of visiting critics, and they were all practicing artists. So they weren't necessarily like trained teachers. And I always really respected them for that, because I felt like I gained the most from learning from people that were really doing it in the field, instead of, kind of somebody who just got out of grad school that's teaching. And for me, when I got out of grad school, people did go immediately into teaching. And that's something that it's one of the few things an MFA can do for you. So I thought I didn't want to do that until I had something to say, or I had something to share with people. And so I think at this point I might actually have something to share. Mm-hmm. So yeah, maybe.
If a guy's in Pueblo, do you have a studio you sell out of, or?
Well, I have a garage studio that you are welcome to come to studio visit, take you around Pueblo. Yeah,
I'd love to come and see your work in your studio, and it'd be fun to take a tour with you too, and go down to the levees and check that out. So I'd love to come down and hang out with you for an afternoon or something.
Yeah, you both should. So put that on your calendar.
Yeah, we'll be going back down there. We talked about going to Trinidad, so we'll be back down in that area eventually. So I just don't know I don't know when my next trip to Denver will be. I got to go see my dad next. So doing the family thing. We've talked about this multiple times on the podcast, but Pueblo has a very vibrant arts community and scene down there. What kind of things have you seen happen in the past year in that aspect, as far as the arts community there?
I mean, I think within the past years, harder, because a lot of it is, people haven't been able to gather quite as much. But I think the thing about Pueblo too is it's very resilient. So I think even when, pandemics are happening, people are still kind of creating work and kind of having that dialogue. And so I think even with, Blowback Gallery starting, and it's kind of created a space for not only, two-dimensional and three-dimensional artists, but also for performing and kind of performance art, as well as bands. And so Jeff Medine, who owns it, just created another whole section, which is more performance-based. So he's got a whole other gallery that's in there. So there's a lot of artists that kind of get together and kind of collaborate. And so that's been kind of interesting or nice to see. And just, people that are really supporting each other. And even, the Leveys, Cynthia is great about helping first-time muralists. And, she's out there on the mural, helping people, giving them tips and, really helping anybody who wants to do a mural can do a mural. So that's the nice thing too about Pueblo is that they're so supportive and, really, really talented too.
Yeah, I was enjoying my time there. Have your artist peers, have they been pretty productive last year? Did it seem like engaging with them?
I think so. I mean, at least, with my art walk series of talking to a lot of people in Pueblo, it was, they seem to be really producing a lot and having things, commissions and things that are kind of going out beyond Pueblo. So it was nice to see that, life still goes on and people are still making art no matter what.
No matter what the time is and what's going down in the world, right?
Yeah.
We can be burning up here in the West and in the midst of a pandemic and people are still out making art.
Right. Yeah. There's still, and a lot of this too is, for them, they're producing it and making our town better too of, installing sculptures around town. And, it's not always a paid thing, but Pueblo pulls together and does stuff. So
it's nice when a town does that. Well, they're, support the arts in that fashion.
Yeah.
Artists will always make art and makers will always be making stuff, right?
Yeah. Now,
are you connected very much with any of that stuff that's going down in Trinidad right now? Because I know that's become like a hotbed of an art scene and artists down that way. But we have not tapped into that. I was just curious if you've experienced any of that.
You know what? Not much. I did a residency at the Trinidad History Museum 3 years ago, and they were just doing all of the renovations for Space to Create. And so I know a few artists that are down there, and they're saying amazing things about it, that it's, it's going well. And, I've been to Trinidad recently, but I'm not super connected to it.
Yeah, I was just curious.
Yeah.
Everybody that, like I said at the beginning of the podcast, if you live in Denver, you owe it to yourself to go down to Michael Warren Contemporary, down in the heart of the art district on Santa Fe, and check out the show that Meghan has. It really is wonderful. Go down, check that out. It runs through the 28th of August. There's also the show at the Cottonwood Center for the Arts, Interstate Badlands, that happens in November 5th through the 27th, it looks like. And then Meghan also has the Road Series show up in Aspen at Red Brick. That'll also be happening sometime in November. So you have a multitude of ways of going out and seeing Meghan's work and, you know what? Support local art and buy it now, folks, because I'm telling you, 10 years from now, might not be able to afford it. No, but seriously, you owe it to yourselves to get out and see some of Meghan's work. And I do. I totally respect you as an artist. And I was happy to see the work in person. Like I said, on the last podcast, that was the first time I got to see your work, was at Michael Warren. But it was really nice to see a whole body and see what you've been doing in this past year. And those paintings are absolutely exquisite. Seriously, I really love your work. So thank you for spending time with us again this evening and talking about the show and all the stuff that you've been doing and what you have in the future.
Well, thank you for having me on the show. And thank you specifically for coming down to the show, because I think, talking about the work is one thing, but actually showing up and seeing it is another. So I really appreciate that. And for talking to you and being on for the second time is an honor. So thank you.
Yeah, I love your work. I absolutely love your work. Can't wait to come down to Pueblo again, and we'll reach out and spend some time with you. For sure.
It'll be fun.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
Again, Meghan's website is meghanwilbar.com, and you can find her on Instagram. Check it out. And for the Tenant Podcast, I'm Todd Pearson.
And I'm Wes Brown.
Have a great week.